I was standing in my bedroom, zipping up my duffel bag for move-in day, when my mom called me downstairs with that voice, the one she only used when disaster had struck. "Hannah, what did you do?" I took a deep breath, smoothed my shirt, and walked down the stairs like I hadn't been waiting for this moment for weeks. My parents were in the kitchen, white as sheets. My brother was pacing, phone to his ear, realtor on speaker. All three of them turned and stared at me like I'd set the house on fire. The realtor's voice came through the phone, tinny and stressed. "I'm sorry, Luke, but the seller has accepted another offer. The property is officially under contract with a different buyer." My brother jabbed a finger at me. "Tell him it's a mistake. Tell him you're still buying it for me." I leaned against the counter and folded my arms. "Oh," I said sweetly. "You mean the house Mom and Dad bought with my college fund? The one you were going to move into next week?" My mom's mouth trembled. "Hannah," she whispered, "how could you sell your brother's house?" I smiled, sharp and tired. "I didn't sell my brother's house," I said. "I sold my future back." And just like that, every lie they had told themselves about being good parents started to crumble. My name is Hannah. I'm 18, from a suburb outside of Austin, Texas, and my family has always told one story about me. "Don't worry about Hannah," they'd say. "She's the responsible one. She'll figure it out." That sentence sounds like a compliment, but in my house it was a free pass for everyone else to treat my life like a backup plan. I'm the youngest. My brother, Luke, is 4 years older and the dictionary definition of a golden child. When Luke was born, my parents hung his hospital bracelet in a shadow box above the fireplace. When I was born, they put mine in a drawer so it wouldn't get dusty. That pretty much set the tone. Luke got guitar lessons, soccer camps, a car at 16 so he wouldn't have to ride the bus like some loser. I got hand-me-downs, rides, and a pat on the shoulder. But I didn't mind, at first. I liked school. I liked working hard and getting A's. Teachers liked me, counselors liked me. I built my own identity around the idea that if I just kept being the good kid, everything would work out. Part of that belief came from the college fund. My parents started it when I was little, at least. That's what they told everyone. Every birthday check from Grandma, every little windfall, they'd say, "Straight into your college fund, Hannah. You're going to college debt-free." They said it in front of people. Loudly. Proudly. At every barbecue, my dad would clap me on the shoulder and announce, "This one's going to be the first college graduate in the family. We've got money set aside just for her. Our girl won't be drowning in loans like we did." People would smile, impressed. My mom would bask in their approval like she'd just cured cancer. It became part of my story. When classes got hard or I wanted to quit my part-time job, I'd think about that future. Walking across a stage, no crushing debt, finally being seen as something more than Luke's little sister. I didn't realize that entire future was sitting in an account my parents could access with a single signature. Or that one day, they'd decide my dream was less important than my brother's starter home. Luke was always charming. He's the kind of guy who calls waitresses sweetheart and somehow still gets extra fries. He scraped through high school on charisma and makeup work. Teachers would shake their heads and say, if he'd just apply himself. He barely lasted a year in community college before dropping out because it was a waste of time. My parents didn't yell. They told him to find his passion and let him move back home, rent-free. When he got his first full-time job at a car dealership, they threw him a congratulatory dinner. When he quit 6 months later because his manager was an idiot, my mom baked his favorite cheesecake to cheer him up. Meanwhile, I kept my grades up, worked 16 hours a week at a coffee shop, and stacked extracurriculars like my life depended on it. Because in my mind it kind of did. Junior year, I started actually seeing numbers for the first time. One night, my dad sat me down with a smug little smile. "Just checked your college account," he said. "You're sitting at around 35 grand. Add in your scholarships when they come, and you're golden. 35,000. To 15-year-old me, that sounded like $1 million. I remembered that number. I carved it into my memory, like proof that my work was paying off. By the time senior year rolled around, I had acceptance letters from 3 schools. The one I really wanted was the University of Texas at Austin in-state tuition. Great program, far enough from home to breathe. When the big orange envelope came, I actually screamed. My mom filmed me opening it for Facebook. My dad popped cheap champagne. Luke ruffled my hair and said, "Look at you, little nerd. Going to the big leagues." For one whole week, I believed the story my parents had been selling. Then the bill came. The first tuition statement landed in my inbox mid-June. Fall semester charges, due dates, financial aid checklist. I clicked through everything, feeling that nervous, excited buzz. It wasn't a full ride, but between a merit scholarship, a Pell Grant, and the 35 plus whatever the account had grown to, it was doable. Or so I thought. At the bottom of one of the forms, there was a line that said, "Attach proof of funds or 529 balance if using personal savings." No big deal, I figured. I'd ask my dad to print a statement from the bank. That night at dinner, between my mom talking about a new farmhouse table she wanted and Luke complaining about gas prices, I said, "Hey Dad, can you send me an updated statement for my college fund? The school needs it for financial aid." My parents exchanged a look. Not a normal look. A look. My stomach tightened. Dad cleared his throat. "We'll talk about that after dessert." Luke snorted. "Uh-oh, did you lose it in crypto, Dad?" Everyone laughed except me. After dinner, my mom collected the plates a little too fast. My dad gestured toward the living room. "Sit down, Hannah." That's when I knew something was wrong. In our house, sit down was reserved for bad news and big announcements. I sat on the edge of the couch. My parents sat across from me like they were about to deliver a layoff notice. Dad laced his fingers. "So, about your college fund." My mouth went dry. "Okay, you know things have been tight," he began. "With inflation, the market, your mom's business slowing down. Get to the point," I said. Even I was surprised by how sharp my voice sounded. Mom flinched. Dad frowned. "We had to make a decision," he said. "A family decision." "We used your college fund," Mom blurted, then rushed on. "But it's not gone, it's just in a different form." I stared at them. "I'm sorry." Dad sighed. "We emptied the account. We used it as a down payment on a house." My brain couldn't seem to process the words. "A house," I repeated slowly. "For who?" They hesitated just long enough for the answer to hit me. "For Luke," I said. "You spent my college fund on a house for Luke." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Sweetie, it's not like that. It's a house for the family. For your brother and his future family. It's an investment. Property is more stable than a savings account. And we're not abandoning you," Dad added quickly. "There are loans, scholarships. You're smart. You'll qualify for all kinds of aid. This way, the family builds generational wealth." I actually laughed. It came out harsh and wrong. "Generational wealth?" I said. "You mean Luke gets a 3-bedroom starter home and I get debt?" Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic. We're co-signing the mortgage. It's our investment too. We're all sacrificing." "Really?" I said. "What exactly is Luke sacrificing?" No one answered. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. "How much was in the account?" I asked. "Exactly." Dad looked uncomfortable. "About 42,000. 42,000, I repeated. Every birthday check, every Christmas gift, every time you said you were putting something aside for me. All of that, gone. Without even asking me?" Mom reached for my hand. "We didn't want to worry you," she said. "And it's not like the money vanished. It's in the house. When Luke's established, we can pull equity out and help with your loans. This is just rearranging. You made me work extra shifts so you could brag about how I'd be debt-free," I said, voice shaking. "You told everyone you were saving for my future. And now you're telling me, oops, we spent it on granite countertops for your brother? That's not fair," Mom snapped, tears turning to anger. "We've given you everything. Roof over your head, food, clothes, that's the bare minimum for a child," I said. "You don't get a trophy for not neglecting me." Dad stood up. "Watch your tone, young lady." I stood too. "You watch yours," I said. "I earned that money. I did everything right because I trusted you. And you robbed me." The word hung in the air like gun smoke. Mom gasped. How dare you, I cut in. "You didn't even tell me. I had to find out because the school asked for proof." Dad's voice dropped, going cold. "Legally, that account was in my name. It was always our money. You are a child. We are the adults. We made a decision for the good of the family." I stared at him. for the good of the family, which translated from parentese meant, for the good of Luke. Something inside me hardened. What house? I asked. Where is it? Mom blinked. Why does that matter? Because if you used my college fund to pay for it, I said, I want to see what my future bought. The house was 20 minutes away, in a transitional neighborhood my parents had been talking about like it was the new Beverly Hills. They drove me out the next day, probably hoping the sight of it would soften me up. I'll admit, it was nice. A 3-bedroom brick ranch on a corner lot, freshly painted, with a big oak tree in the front yard and a sold sign already hanging crookedly in the grass. There was a little covered porch, white trim, new windows. In my head, I saw numbers: down payment, closing costs, inspections. My college fund evaporating into square footage. Luke met us in the driveway, grinning like a kid on Christmas. There's the girl of the hour, he said, throwing an arm around my shoulders. What do you think? Pretty sweet, huh? I stepped out from under his arm. It's fine, I said. For something I paid for and don't get to live in. He frowned. Come on, don't be like that. This benefits everyone. I'll have space for you to crash when you visit from college. If I manage to afford college, I said. He rolled his eyes. You will. You always do well. On the other hand, he spread his arms, indicating the house need a little boost. My jaw clenched. Inside, the place still smelled like paint and cleaning chemicals. The sellers had already moved out, leaving staged furniture and generic art. This is the living room, Mom chirped, like she was giving a tour to strangers. Open concept. And look at this kitchen. Quartz counters. Soft close drawers. Dad gestured toward the hallway. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. The master has a walk-in closet. There's even a little office nook where Luke can, plan his future. I walked through the rooms in silence, fingers trailing over door frames. In one of the spare bedrooms, sunlight slanted in just right, warm and golden. I pictured a tiny desk, textbooks stacked neatly, my laptop open, a college hoodie slung over the chair. For half a second, I could see myself living here. Studying, cooking, maybe having a friend over to binge Netflix. Then Luke's voice cut through the daydream. I'm thinking I'll turn this room into a gaming setup, he said. Big TV on that wall, couch here. Maybe a mini fridge. The imaginary desk vanished. Of course. This wasn't my space. It never would be. This is all very exciting, I said finally. But I have one question. Dad sighed. Hannah, no, I said. I deserve to know. How exactly? Is this in my name? Or is it all under yours? Dad hesitated. We put down the cash from your account. The mortgage is in mine and your mom's names. Legally, the house is ours. Luke will be paying us rent until he can take over. So the house isn't even in his name? I said. You bought yourselves a second house with my college fund so he could play grown-up without a bank saying no. Mom bristled. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I said. Luke shrugged. Relax. It's not a big deal. They'll help you like they helped me. We're family. I looked around one more time. The gleaming counters, the empty rooms, the illusion of adulthood being handed to my brother like a participation trophy. And then I decided, if you treat my future like a gift card, don't be surprised when I spend it my way. I didn't have a plan right away. I just had anger. Cold, sharp anger that made it hard to sleep. For a few days, I went through the motions. Work, packing lists, online orientation modules for a college I wasn't sure I could attend. My parents acted like everything was settled. We talked to the financial aid office, Mom said one night, as if she were doing me a favor. There are plenty of loan options. We'll help with the paperwork. Think of it as building credit, Dad added. And once Luke's settled, we can refinance the house and maybe free up some equity for you. I nodded, because nodding was easier than screaming. Later that week, Luke cornered me in the driveway. Look, I get why you're mad, he said. But can you not make this weird? Mom's been crying for days. Dad stressed. This house is a big step for me. For you, I repeated. He sighed. You're going to college no matter what. You're too stubborn not to. I, on the other hand, need a stable base so I can figure out my life. This helps everyone. It helps you, I said. It helps them feel like good parents. I'm the only one it doesn't help. He shrugged. Sometimes you take one for the team. That's what family is. When he walked away, I realized something important. In my family's version of team, I was the equipment. Useful, taken for granted, and never really considered a player. If I wanted to change that, I had to stop playing by their rules. So I started asking questions. The first person I went to was the realtor. His name was Mark, and he'd given me his card the day we toured the house in case you ever need a place of your own someday, kiddo. I found the card in my jeans pocket, slightly crumpled, and called him from the back room of the coffee shop during my break. Hey Mark, it's Hannah. Tom and Karen's daughter? The one going off to UT? Oh, hey there, he said. Excited about the big housewarming? Super excited, I said dryly. Quick question though. Is the sale final yet? We're scheduled to close in 3 weeks, he said. Inspection's done, appraisal's good, just waiting on the lender's final clear to close. Why? If, hypothetically, I said, the buyers were using money they weren't supposed to use, like legally questionable funds, would that be a problem for the seller? There was a pause. Well, he said slowly, if there's fraud involved, the lender would have an issue, and the seller might have grounds to cancel. Why? Is there something I should know? I looked around to make sure no one was listening. My parents emptied a custodial account that was set aside for my education, I said. It wasn't their personal savings. It was my college fund. They never told me. I'm 18 now, and I just found out when the statement came up empty. Another pause. That's, yikes, he said. Legally, if the account was in their name, it gets murky. Morally, that's rough. If the seller knew, I pressed, could he choose not to go through with it? He sighed. Possibly. There's a clause about buyers using their own funds and not proceeds of illegal activity, but this sounds more like a family dispute than, say, money laundering. I bit my lip. Can I talk to him? The seller? I'm not really supposed to go around my clients, he said. But he'll be at the final walkthrough. Why? Because I said slowly, a plan forming in the back of my mind, I think he deserves to know what he's getting into, and I might be able to help him make more money. That got his attention. Go on, he said. The seller's name was Mr. Alvarez. He was in his 60s, with kind eyes and a mustache that made him look like every friendly Tio at a cookout. He and his wife were downsizing to a condo closer to their grandkids. The house wasn't just a transaction to him, it was 30 years of family memories. When I learned that, my anger softened a bit. The last thing I wanted was to screw over some sweet old man. So instead of ambushing him, I asked Mark to set up a quick chat at the house one afternoon about some concerns with the financing. My parents couldn't make it, Dad had work, Mom had a client. Luke was supposed to be there but forgot. So it was just me, Mark, and Mr. Alvarez standing in the empty living room that should have been my brother's. I told the truth. I told them about the college fund, the promises, the way my parents had quietly drained it without a conversation. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but I didn't. My voice stayed weirdly steady, like I was reading someone else's story. When I finished, Mr. Alvarez's face was tight. Your parents did this without telling you? He asked. Yes, sir, I said. And they're using that money to buy my house for your brother? Yes. He rubbed a hand over his face. Ay Dios mío. Mark cleared his throat. From a strictly legal standpoint, it's messy. The funds came from an account in the father's name. Even if morally I'm not asking if I can sue them, I cut in. I'm asking if you want to sell your house to people who think this is okay. And if you'd be open to a different buyer. One who isn't using stolen dreams as a down payment. They both looked at me. Mark said, Are you saying you want to buy it? I laughed. God, no. I have about $400 and a jar of quarters to my name. But I might know someone who can. The week before, one of my regulars at the coffee shop, a woman named Jenna, had been venting about losing out on a house because some cash buyer swooped in at the last minute. We keep getting beat by investors, she'd said, stirring her latte angrily. We just want a little house with a yard before our baby gets here. The market's insane. I'd listened, sympathized, and thought nothing of it. Until now. I know a couple who've been looking in this area for months, I told Mr. Alvarez. They're pre-approved, they've lost out on 3 places. They're desperate for exactly this kind of house. If you backed out with my parents, they would jump on this. Mark frowned. We have a signed contract. Backing out would mean losing the earnest money. How much is that? I asked. 10,000, he said. My stomach twisted. 10,000 of my college fund, sitting in escrow. If they breached because of fraud, I said carefully, would they still get it back? Mr. Alvarez's eyes narrowed. I don't like the idea of taking anyone's money, he said. But I also don't like what your parents did. He turned to Mark. If I cancel because they misrepresented their funds, do I have to refund the earnest money? Mark sighed. We'd have to look at the contract. But there's a clause that says if buyers misrepresent their financial position, the seller can terminate and keep the earnest money as damages. So I could, Mr. Alvarez said slowly, looking between us, cancel this sale, keep the 10,000, and then resell the house to someone else. Given how the market's moved. Yes, Mark admitted. Mr. Alvarez looked at me. And you would bring me new buyers? Good ones. I'd introduce you, I said. After that, it's up to you. I can't stop my parents from being who they are. But I don't have to stand by while they spend my future on a gift for my brother. There was a long silence. Finally, Mr. Alvarez nodded. Call your friends, he said. Let's see if they're serious. I raised 3 kids. If someone did to my youngest what your parents did to you, I would want someone to help them too. The next 48 hours were a blur. First, I called Jenna. Hey, it's Hannah from the coffee shop, I said when she answered. We talked about houses last week? Oh yeah, she said cautiously. Everything okay? I might have a solution for you, I said. Are you still looking in my neighborhood range? 3-bed, 2-bath, big yard? Are you kidding me? She said. That's literally our dream. But we keep getting outbid. What if I could get you in front of a seller with no bidding war? I asked. List price, maybe a little above? Move-in ready? She was quiet for a second. Is this a scam? She asked finally. I laughed. No scam. Long story short, my parents are buying a house for my brother with money they stole from my college fund. The seller found out and isn't thrilled. He's thinking about backing out and relisting. If you're interested, you could be first in line. There was another pause. That is the most chaotic sales pitch I've ever heard, she said. But yes, we're interested. Send me the address. Within an hour, she and her husband were at the house, wide-eyed and hopeful. I love it, she whispered as we walked through the kitchen. Oh my God, baby, look at this yard. Her husband squeezed her hand. Don't get your hopes up, he murmured. We've been here before. I pulled Mr. Alvarez aside. They're solid, I said. No drama. No stolen funds. He watched Jenna walk through the living room, palm resting on her small baby bump. Tell your realtor to send my realtor their pre-approval, he said. If everything checks out, I'll do it. The next step was the hardest, waiting. For a week I lived in dread of my parents getting a call from their bank or the realtor. Every time my mom's phone rang, my stomach dropped. But nothing happened. I started to think maybe Mr. Alvarez had changed his mind. Maybe he'd decided not to poke a hornet's nest. Maybe my little act of rebellion would stay just that little, symbolic, but ultimately powerless. Then, 2 weeks before closing, my dad came home from work with a thick envelope and a cloud over his head. Everything okay? Mom asked, noticing his expression. Bank wants updated documentation, he said, dropping the envelope on the table. Something about the source of funds. They flagged the transfer from Hannah's account. My heart slammed against my ribs. Mom frowned. We already gave them the statements. They want proof that it's legitimately ours, Dad said. Not a loan, not borrowed, not... I don't know. He rubbed his temples. They said there was a note on the file that the beneficiary might dispute it. Both of them looked at me. I kept my face as blank as I could. I didn't talk to the bank, I said, which was technically true. But I did talk to someone. Mom's eyes narrowed. Who? The realtor, I said. And the seller. I thought they deserved to know their buyers were stealing from their own kid. Dad's face went a dangerous shade of red. You had no right, he hissed. You had no right, I shot back, to drain my college fund without a conversation. Actions have consequences. Mom slammed her hand on the table. You are ruining everything. Your brother is counting on this. We've already given notice on the rental. Luke, who just walked in, stopped short. What's going on? Your sister is sabotaging us, Dad snapped. She's trying to tank the house deal. Luke turned to me, eyes wide. Why? He demanded. What did I do to you? I laughed, incredulous. You mean besides letting them use my future as your down payment? I said. Besides acting like you're entitled to a house while I drown in loans? It's not like that, he protested. They said they'd help you later. I don't want later, I said. I want what was promised to me. You can't see that because you've never had anything promised to you taken away. You just get things. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Dad jabbed a finger at me. You will call that realtor, he said, and you will tell him you were confused, that everything is fine, that we are a united front as a family. And if I don't? I asked quietly. His eyes went cold. Then you can find somewhere else to live, he said. The threat hung in the air. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. I already did, I said. My friend Kayla's roommate moved out. I can take over her lease near campus. It'll be tight, but at least I'll know whose side the landlord is on. Mom gasped. You would move out over this? Yes, I said. Because you already moved out of my life when you chose Luke's house over my education. I walked away before I could see their reactions. My hands were shaking, but my steps felt strangely light. There's a moment, when you stop begging people to value you, that feels like stepping off a cliff. Terrifying, but also finally, honest. The call from Mr. Alvarez came 3 days later. Technically, it went to my dad. But I wasn't home when it happened. I got the story secondhand in the meltdown that followed. By the time I got back from work, the house was a war zone. Mom was crying, mascara streaked. Dad was pacing, phone in his hand. Luke was slumped at the table, staring at nothing. What happened? I asked, setting down my bag. Dad glared at me like I'd personally burned down his retirement. The seller terminated the contract, he said. He cited misrepresentation of funds and ethical concerns. He's keeping the earnest money and relisting the property. I tried very hard, truly. I did not to smile. How much was the earnest money again? I asked. Mom spat the number like it tasted bad. $10,000. I let out a low whistle. Ouch, I said. That's expensive karma. Luke's head snapped up. You did this, he snarled. You ruined my life over some stupid account balance. Stupid account balance? I repeated. That stupid account balance was my chance to go to college without being buried in debt. You were getting a free house. You'll forgive me for not shedding tears over you, having to keep renting like every other 22-year-old. Dad stepped forward, fist clenched. This isn't over, he said. We will fix this. We will talk to a lawyer. You'll do whatever you want, I said. You always do. But here's the thing. I'm done being the silent victim in your family decisions. You made a choice. I made one too. Mom's voice cracked. We are your parents. We know what's best. I shook my head. No, I said. You know what's best for Luke. You never bothered to learn what's best for me. I picked up my bag again. Where are you going? Dad demanded. To Kayla's, I said. Her couch until we sign the sublease. Orientation starts next week. I have a campus to get to. You can't just I can, I said. And I am. I paused at the door, looking back at them for what felt like the first time as people, not gods. For what it's worth, I said, I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it to stop you from hurting me. That's a boundary, not a betrayal. Then I walked out. If this were a movie, the next part would be a montage, upbeat music, boxes carried up dorm stairs, me laughing with new friends. Reality was messier. The night on Kayla's couch was uncomfortable. The sublease paperwork was stressful. The financial aid meeting at UT left me sweating when I saw the loan numbers. But underneath all of that anxiety was something new. Control. For the first time, I was making choices for my life that weren't filtered through what will Mom say? Or how will this affect Luke? A week after the contract was terminated, Jenna came into the coffee shop, grinning so wide I thought her face might split. We got it, she said, practically bouncing. The house. Your seller accepted our offer. We close next month. I laughed, genuinely happy. That's amazing, I said. Congrats. She squeezed my hand. You basically saved us. We were about to give up. Later, she messaged me on Instagram with a photo, her and her husband standing in front of my house, holding a sold sign. Underneath, she wrote, couldn't have done it without our secret agent. Red eye stared at the picture for a long time. The yard looked greener. The house looked like it belonged to people who would fill it with new memories, not entitlement. I'd sold my brother's gift out from under him. And instead of feeling guilty, I felt relieved. My parents and I went low contact after I moved. They called at first to argue, to guilt trip, to say things like, "You'll regret this when you're older," and "We were just trying to help your brother." I kept the conversation short. "I'm focusing on school," I'd say. "We can talk later." Later stretched into weeks. Then, mid-semester, I got an email from my dad with the subject line, "College Fund Update." My hands shook as I opened it. "Hannah, your mother and I have been talking. We spoke with a financial advisor. He did not approve of how we handled your college savings. He said some things we didn't want to hear. We can't undo everything, but we've managed to move some things around. Enclosed is confirmation of a new account in your name only with $20,000. It's not what was there originally, but it's what we can manage without jeopardizing our home. We know this doesn't fix the hurt. We also know you don't owe us forgiveness. We are proud of you, even when you're furious with us." Dad attached was a PDF, a bank statement with my name, my address, and a balance that made my vision blur. 20,000. I leaned back in my tiny dorm chair and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It wasn't a full replacement. It wasn't an apology that magically erased everything. But it was something tangible. A crack in the wall of denial my parents had been hiding behind. I forwarded the statement to the financial aid office before I even responded. 2 days later, my loan package was adjusted. Less debt. A little more breathing room. When I finally wrote back to my dad, I kept it simple. "Thank you for doing this. I'm still hurt. I still need space. But I see that you're trying." He didn't push. Neither did my mom. Over time, our conversations shifted from arguments to updates. How classes were going. How grandma was doing. Whether Luke had found a new place to rent. He had. A small apartment with 2 roommates and a creaky balcony. Reality, at last. We're not a perfectly healed family now. There's no neat bow on this story. But there is something I didn't have before. A spine. The knowledge that I can set boundaries and survive the fallout. That I can say, "No, this isn't okay," even when the people crossing the line are the ones who raised me. Sometimes, when I'm walking across campus, backpack digging into my shoulders, I think about that house. I picture Jenna's kid learning to ride a bike in the driveway. Halloween pumpkins on the porch. Christmas lights zigzagging along the roof. I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed quiet. Luke would be sitting in that living room right now, feet up on the coffee table, telling friends, "My parents really came through for me." My mom would be bragging about her son the homeowner, conveniently leaving out the part where she gutted her daughter's future to make it happen. And me? I'd be here anyway, probably. But resentful, drowning in more debt, and still wondering if I was wrong for feeling used. Instead, I spoke up. I interfered. I sold their gift before they could hand it over with a bow. They call it betrayal. I call it self-defense. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about family. Loyalty without boundaries isn't love. It's control. And sometimes, the only way to protect your own future, is to take back the keys before someone else moves in.